Hello, welcome to another beautiful day God has given us. Filming this at Harvard University in our ALI offices. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and privileged to be hosting a co-classmate. That's what my children say that I'm in school.
Exactly.
Schoolmate, fellow person on the journey who I was so pleased to meet when we started this program. We've had close to end of the year now in our program. We've had great conversations. We've supported each other and looked out for each other. And of all other blessings, she's from New York. As many of you remember, my first entry into this country was New York City, going to Columbia University, JFK. I've run 3 New York marathons. I've gone to New York 3 times every year to do fundraising. It is like home to me.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister here, Esmeralda, has offered her place in Brooklyn for me to stay whenever I'm in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Sister Esmeralda out of New York. Welcome to TJK. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here. First, you need to know how much I admire our host. As I told him when I first met him, oh, I know about you. You're one of these saints amongst our midst because of the wonderful work that he has done in Uganda and because of the wonderful work he's done in modeling behavior for the rest of us. I'm Esmeralda Simmons. I am a child of immigrants from the Caribbean, St. Croix. I grew up and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I am a real Brooklynite. I live in Bedford-Stuyvesant of a very historic Black community. And I am a very active member of the community. I've spent my entire I would say even from undergraduate through law school onto career, being engaged in what I consider to be the long, hard fight for Black liberation in the U.S. and abroad, around the world.
Yes.
So I became politicized when I was in high school. I went to all white schools from the time I was grammar school all the way through college. There were not basically very, very few Black students. So I had 5 in my high school of 1,000 students. My sisters and I integrated our grammar school. Wow. We integrated our neighborhood. There were 90 Black students in college, and the college had like 20,000 students. Yeah, it has been a very, very different and often difficult road in terms of socialization. So I specifically did not go to Columbia because I wanted to be able to be with some Black people. And I found out when I got to Hunter College that there were more Black people at Columbia University than there were at Hunter College. But fate would have it that I became one of the student leaders that led the student strikes of the 1970s. 1969, 1970, there was a big strike at our university, and I was one of the leaders of the strike at our college. The strike was led by the Black and the Latino students, and together we were one unit. We were a coalition and very, very highly politicized against the wrongs of society, and determined to open up our college to anyone that wanted to get a college education, because the college, when we came there, when we were striking, was exclusively for students who had A averages. So if you didn't have an A average, you couldn't go to this free university paid by taxpayers' dollars. Okay. Yeah, everything was free. I mean, tuition was free, the books weren't free, but everything was free. And you could get an entire degree there. You could get a master's degree as well. But that was only open to students with high grade point averages. So somebody that might have gone to a less academically preparatory school could not get into the school. Didn't matter how intelligent you were.
Yes.
So as many of you may not know, New York City schools are highly segregated, and that's public schools, including parochial schools. This is what I went to, Catholic schools. They were highly segregated too. They were so highly segregated that I went to high school. Instead of going to the high school that was closer to my home, because more Black people were moving into the neighborhood, I was sent way to the other end of Brooklyn because they wanted to make sure that all the white girls in the grammar school that I went to would not have to mix with the Black and Latino girls that were moving into the local Catholic high school. So my sister went to the local Catholic high school. 2 years later, when it was my turn to go to high school, I'm sent to Sheepshead Bay, which is where I went to high school. All of this led me to know that that the whole idea of racial superiority was absolutely a myth. Because I'm the one tutoring the white girls, I'm the one helping them with their English. I'm the one teaching them geometry. And so there was no question in my mind that any idea that people of African descent were inferior was nonsense. Yes. Absolute nonsense. As a matter of fact, all of the Black girls that went to that high school with me, we all shone. And it's so very, very interesting. 3 of the 5 girls that were there when I was there, 3 of the 5 girls became lawyers.
Became lawyers.
Yeah, there's a reason for that, by the way.
There is.
Yes. Yep. Number one, you had to defend yourself at all times.
That's true.
Intellectually as well as defend your people. Because so many people.
And that still happens today. We've seen it right here at Harvard.
Absolutely. It happens every day at Harvard. It happens every day at Harvard because there are many, many people here, the majority of whom think that they are better, smarter, and definitely smarter than Jackson and myself. And when they come to realize really who we are, they are terrified.
That's true.
They are terrified. And we're not meaning to scare them by our greatness, but we can't hide it.
That's who we are.
I'm not about to hide it.
No.
So I speak, for me, who is a constant talker, I speak very, very, very little. And when I speak, I mean exactly what I have to say. And I am not overly generous in giving out wisdom to folks here who need it, because I am not here to basically be their guru. I am here at ALI to pick up tools and skills I need to be productive in the fight for freedom in my later years. I had to read school in terms of technology and communications. I mean, I know how to speak, I know how to write, but I don't know how to do a podcast. I didn't know how to do a podcast. I didn't know how to put something up in a deck. I didn't call it a deck. I call it a PowerPoint. That's how old I am. I didn't know what they meant when they said a deck. What deck? I'm looking for a ship. On a ship. Or on a ship, You learn a lot of things when you come here. Yes. So I have learned a tremendous amount in addition to how younger people view the fight for racial justice. I've been very heartened by the number of people from around the world who see it as their fight as well. There are very, very many people from India and Pakistan here. Yes. There are many people from South America and Central America, and a few people directly from Europe. A few people, not too many people from China.
Yes,
China's people are like absent here, which is ridiculous.
They're in undergraduate and graduate school,
right?
But as you go higher, no, not in our cohort,
right? And I haven't seen a single Chinese immigrant in any of my classes. And when think of the number of Chinese people in the world, you notice something skewed. That's skewed here. So I'm just saying that's interesting. Yes. The two Chinese people we have in our class are both Chinese American, and are wonderful folks. But I'm telling you that this whole working with my colleagues here. And learning has been a very, very good, enriching experience. I've already put it to work. Unlike some folks, I'm like Jackson. I came in with a project. I didn't need somebody to tell me, go find a project.
Yes.
My life is my project. The work that I
Yes.
do is my project.
Yes.
So I had a project and I knew what I was trying to get, which was skills and communication. So I found courses that taught me that. I'm taking a great course right now. It's called Communication, Law, and Social Justice. It's directly on all fours, on point for what I need to learn. And even our last assignment is directly on point because it's forcing me to create a deck. And I'm putting, photos and stuff in it.
Yes.
Something that I don't have any experience doing, but I'm learning how to do it. And if I really get into a panic mode, I'll come in here and get help. But it's all an exercise. That's what school is, an exercise, learning, getting skills so that I can go back to my community in Brooklyn, in New York, and the world, and share those skills, and share and use the skills to further our movement. So it's been a very good thing. It has been disheartening at times because we're dealing with many, many people who have no idea on how the world works.
That's true. That is
None of them.
Yes.
They live in a bubble. Good-hearted people, they wouldn't be in this program if they weren't good-hearted. This program attracts people who want to do good things. So that's the good thing. So we're meeting the good-hearted people where they are, and some of them are still disturbed when something unpleasant is shown to them about their existence. They're still upset because they don't like to be uncomfortable with their being in the 1%. That's basically who most of our classmates are in the 1%. And I never knew people in the 1% before. I knew some people that were in the 3%.
Yes.
But I never knew anyone in the 1%. And when I realized that most of these people are in the 1%, I was like, oh my God.
And you might want to explain what 1% means for the world audience. Our people who are out there, yes, what's 1%?
Oh, 1%. I'm gonna give you the answer and then I'm gonna back up.
Yeah.
The 1% refers to the 1% of the wealthiest people on the planet.
Yes.
The 99 to 100 percentile of people who own the most, who have the most wealth, the wealthiest people on the planet, the upper 1%. That's what I'm talking about. And it has been stated, over and over. First they used to call it the 3%, but now they're saying that 97% of the wealth of the entire world is owned by 1%.
1% of the wealth.
Of the people.
Now you get it.
That's who the 1% are.
Those people, some of them are
our classmates.
Our classmates.
And to the point which, their generosity is to be applauded. Yes. I mean, some of the things they're doing with their wealth is so magnificent.
That's true.
But I was absolutely stunned, out of my mind. The first social engagement, very social class. The first social engagement, we went to somebody's apartment. It was a penthouse. Okay, fine, it's a penthouse. I walk in the door, there is $6 million worth of art on the walls.
Yes.
And I just said to the owners, okay, I know art. Yes. Give me the tour. And I said, I have seen that one in the Museum of Modern Art. I have seen this one at the Metropolitan Museum. I saw that in San Francisco. And they're like me, they're looking at me, you don't go to all these art? Yeah, I go to art galleries, I go to art museums because it inspires me.
Yes.
And I knew some of this art. And I'm like, oh my God, you have a museum up here.
In a penthouse.
And this is just how they live.
Yes. So at one point, growing up where you grew up, and where your parents grew up.
My parents grew up poor. And immigrants,
came here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back. I know we've answered most of them in your introductory remarks. Tell us about your mom and dad.
Oh.
Yes. Let's go personal.
Yes. My mother.
Yes.
My mother is Esmeralda Benjamin. She was born in St. Croix. My grandmother, Anne Fries Francis took her as an infant and brought her to the United States. She was already a citizen of the United States because St. Croix is a colony
Yes.
of the United States. You have to understand.
Many people don't know that.
People,
St.
St. Croix,
St.
Puerto Rico, Guam, Samoa Islands are colonies of the United States. No commonwealths, just straightforward colonies, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
So my parents grew up in the colony of the United States, and my father spent his entire childhood in St. Croix. My parents were from the same, there's only two towns, they're not cities.
Towns.
Two
yes.
towns in St. Croix. One is called Christiansted, which is downtown area, where the Dutch had all of their governmental buildings. And the other city, town is called Frederiksted, which is more toward rural, and much more cultural, African culture, to be clear.
Yes.
So my parents were born in Frederiksted, and my father was drafted. I hope you're paying attention.
Yes.
A colony, and they're drafting every young man of eligible age that was in St. Croix was drafted to go to war in World War II.
Mandatory to go and fight.
Exactly. So you either went to fight or you went to jail.
Oh, there was, whoa. If you didn't go, you went to
jail. Right.
That's what Muhammad Ali was fighting.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly. Same exact
you get
thing.
the history of people.
Exactly. He was doing it for the Vietnam War. My father was in World War II.
Yes.
After my father survived World War II, and they dropped the bomb on Japan while my father was on a transport plane with 150 other men from St. Croix and Puerto Rico and Harlem. Now, I understand, Harlem, St. Croix, and Puerto Rico, 3 different regiments. They put all these people of color together, and they had them on a transport. They were going to be dropped onto the Japanese beach to fight hand-to-hand combat with Japanese. So it was a death. They were going to their death. They knew where they were going. They knew they were going to die. They dropped the bomb while they were mid-air, and then the plane turned around and went back to I remember, I think it was to Hawaii. My father then immigrated to New York. He came to an apartment where all the people from Frederiksted would go. It was like a settlement house. That was my grandmother's apartment, and people from St. Croix would go there, and they would get settled. And then she had 2 rooms for tenants, and then the rest of the apartment, like I had 3 bedrooms, and then not 4 bedrooms, and the rest of the apartment was for her family. And her family at that point consisted of her, my grandfather, my step-grandfather, Elias Francis, and my mother, her only child, plus 2 nieces that she was raising. So there were 3 girls, and the two parents, and then the tenants. So my father came through as a tenant. He was going to Manhattan College in upper Manhattan, and he took a liking to my mother. My grandmother did not like that at all.
That's grandmother.
Yeah, she was watching him like a hawk.
Yeah.
But he was the A student from St. Croix. Everybody knew who was a big academic star, and he's going to college on the GI Bill.
Yes.
And then eventually he went and lived someplace else. My mother was, when she became 21, she moved and had her own apartment in Washington Heights. And then they got together and got married and lived up there for a while. And then they moved to Brooklyn. And I was the second. I had the first child up there in Manhattan, and I was the second child. My father was an honor student in college. My mother was an honor student in high school, but she never went to college. Instead, she became a practical nurse and worked in wards for people who had chronic illnesses. There was an island that used to be, what is now called Roosevelt Island, was called Welfare Island in Manhattan.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And all those
Yes.
hospitals that were on there were all state and city hospitals. And people would go there, so people would, they had wards of people with TB and everything else. So she worked in those wards as a nurse. My mother was extremely, extremely loving woman. All of her children, unconditional love.
Yes.
My father, on the other hand, was, and very, very smart. My father, on the other hand, was not unconditional love. He loved you if you were doing the right thing.
Exactly.
I mean, your grades had to be A's.
Yes.
You know, no discipline problems.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, exactly. And you know, from the time that you were in, we didn't even have kindergarten. Before you went to the first grade, we were talking about what college you want to go to. What are you going to study? And the good news is that he told us, and from the beginning, that each of us had talents. We need to figure out what our talents are. And he also told us that talents are hereditary. So see if you're good in math. I'm really good in math. He was also very good in languages. I'm terrible at languages, but most of my other siblings are good at languages.
That gene skipped you.
Yes, exactly. But I got the writing gene.
Exactly.
I got the writing gene. So I was excellent in literature and reading and writing, where the rest of the family, they're science people. Exactly. Okay. So my father and my mother raised 5 children. Doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. My younger sister is a doctor. She's a physician. I'm the lawyer. My older sister was an administrator in the human welfare office for the city, but she is the most courageous because she was diagnosed with mental illness from the time she was about 23. And she went on and lived with this, and had an entire career as a manager.
Wow.
And my sister and I just marvel at, how she was able to do that, because it never went away.
It's that, yeah. But
She worked with it.
Yes.
She worked with it, and she struggled through it. It was only when, and this is a hard thing to say, it was only after menopause where her physical system changed that they could not stabilize her on her medication, and she had to retire. I was her caregiver from the first hospitalization. My mother said to me, my mother and father thought I would be a nurse. I can't be a nurse. I can't stand the sight of blood.
Exactly. Oh yeah, you can't be a nurse.
I can't be around it. No, I told him, no nurse. I got a nursing scholarship and everything. No, I'm not going to be a nurse.
Yes.
I'm probably going to be a teacher. But when I went to college, I had 2 magnificent teachers that mentored me. John Henry Clark, who was a very famous African-American historian. He was my mentor, my chief mentor. My second mentor was a woman named Pearl Primus, who was my dance instructor, who took me under her wing and taught me all this culture, because she had been to Africa at least 20 times. And she
20 times.
Yes. And she actually received the award from Liberia, because she went there, she learned the country's dance, and she danced it for, their president and everything else. And they said after she danced it, nobody else could dance it. She was so good.
Wow. She was the closing.
Yes.
Yes. The mic drops.
Exactly. The mic drop. It was the mic drop. Exactly. So these 2 people mentored me. And so I began to learn about my history, my culture.
Yes.
So I was a math major in college. After I had gone through 2.5 years as a math major, I helped create with the other students the Black and Puerto Rican Studies Department, now called Africana Studies and Latino Studies. And I became a double major. So then I took, 35 credits in Africana Studies. I already had like 24 credits in math. And I took a minor of computer science. And after graduating, I took a year off. I wanted to have a second child while I was in law school. I was going to be a teacher. It was both of my mentors, plus the chairman of our department, that pulled me aside individually and told me, no, please. We see who you are. I was the main spokesperson for the Black Student Union. We see who you are. We think that you have the talent to be an excellent lawyer. And I said, lawyer? I don't know anything about law. Nobody in my family was a lawyer. I said, I was on the debating team, you know, both college and high school. So I knew all about argument. But I said, I don't know anything about law, but I'll tell you what, I'll consider it since everybody is telling me that this is what I need to do. So I researched it. That's what they teach you in law in college. Yes. How to research. How to research. That's the only thing they really teach. That and how to handle red tape. How to get through red tape, because that's college administration, yes. And how to research. That if you don't get that out of college, you miss the point. Because after you leave, the skills that you learn then you can apply some of them, exactly. But what you can really always apply is research. So I researched law, and I saw that you could have 1,000 different kinds of careers. And I thought that I could still do the work I was doing in terms of the political work I was doing by using the law to do racial justice work. So against police brutality, redlining, where they stop people from getting mortgages, inequitable education, you know, obviously racial killings, that's what's happening in New York all the time. Yeah. And voting rights, denying us our voting rights. Yeah. And when I was growing up in Brooklyn, every single black community was ruled over by white politicians. We had one community, just one, in Bedford-Stuyvesant that had black representatives. All the other black communities had white representatives. And it wasn't because black people weren't voting. We were voting, but black people could not stand for office. Yes, they would go, yeah. And they would be kicked off the ballot. Yes, frustrated or kicked off. So I have another story there. So I decided I wouldn't do the law. I also decided, and this is very sad, but it's real. I was married very young. At 20, I was married. And my husband, my husband was in the service. He was in the Navy. This is during the Vietnam War. So I decided I didn't want him to be in the Navy anymore. I was sick of the Navy. So I went to Shirley Chisholm's office, who was the first black woman congresswoman from Brooklyn. And I petitioned for him to be released from Navy. They had a hardship discharge. And I wrote up the papers and they said, fabulous work. We'll send it in. And 2 months later, he was home. Wow. Honorable discharge, my first client. So after that, I was very, very happy because he was probably not going to survive the Navy. He was starting to challenge the racism in the Navy. Is the most racist part of the armed services in the United States. It's basically young white officers and a whole bunch of Black and Latino folks on the bottom. Yes. And they won't give them any opportunities or anything. It doesn't matter how intelligent or skilled you are. Yes. You don't get to do anything but chip paint off and scrub floors. And the cadets, most of them are entering to the level of cadet from college? No. Some from college, some from academies in the South. Oh, see, I'm learning new things. Academies in the South, and some from the Naval Academy. Okay. Yeah, they go straight from some academies into being an officer in the Navy. And Sean was an officer in the Navy. I don't know where he's from, but you could talk to him about it. He came out of college though, but he's a Navy guy. Yes. So that's our classmate. Yes, Sean is one of our classmates. And I told him I am not fond of the Navy, and I told him why. Because my husband would. I'll put it like this: the other black men that were on the ship with him, most of them were dishonorably discharged, court-martialed. Oh my God. That after all that. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are listening from Uganda and around the world who do not understand how sometimes this system works,
That's when somebody aggravates you to the extent you respond poorly, and that response leads into a court martial.
Mhm.
Right last week, a friend of mine who works for United Nations, I grew up with this man. The episode we did with him is not about this. As he was crossing from Canada to come to my house in Michigan, the officer at the Canadian border asked him so many dehumanizing questions, all to instigate a reaction. He stayed calm, answered the questions. His suitcase was turned up and down. The food he was bringing for me was poked and tested. This is an officer in the United Nations with a card and passport that shows what he does. But aggravation could have led him to jail if he reacted a certain way. So now you get a lesson.
Exactly, exactly. It's every day, folks.
Yes.
You have to learn as a child how to not let it get to you, and to go about, keep your eyes on the prize of what you're trying to get done, and not let folks, no matter what they call you or whatever, aggravate you. And sometimes it gets physical, and you have to not react to that either, because you will be the one going to jail.
That's true.
They will accuse you of assaulting them. And when the police come, they take you away. And they believe whatever the other person says. So it is, you learn that from childhood, that you cannot react. I'm gonna say something else about when I grew up in childhood. In the neighborhood that we integrated, one of the reasons why I'm a racial justice lawyer now is because for many years, when we first went to the Catholic school, we were the only Black kids besides 3 others in the school. We would have young Italian teenagers, males, that would chase us the 3 blocks from our house, to the school. When we went home for lunch, they would chase us and call us the N-word, chasing us down the street and telling us to, go back to Africa, calling us names, calling us the N-word, threatening to hurt us. And, I was never impressed with their threats of harm, but we could outrun them, so we just outran them. And we just ran home. But, and they would start running and then they would stop running. But it's like, what kind of welcome wagon is that?
Yeah.
I'm talking about someone 8 years old, and this is what some teenage boys think they have to do. Get out of our neighborhood.
Exactly.
We're gonna hurt you, we're gonna hurt your family. I mean,
you don't belong here.
Yeah, thank you. And I just was just saying to them, you have nothing better to do. You should be ashamed of yourself. I would talk to them like an 8-year-old. What's wrong with you? I was never afraid. Unfortunately, my sisters were terrified. So I would run. I would tell them, run. And I would turn back and talk to these guys. And I not often, but several times I had to rescue 1 or 2 of my sisters who were younger than I from bullies. I mean, in school. And this is a Catholic school. Bullying them to the point where they're afraid to do things, and they're giving them money, and we ate lunch at home, so there's no lunch, no taking their lunch, but
pay me.
Yes, exactly.
Intimidation, threats, and ladies and gentlemen, that still happened. My twin girls in kindergarten had a young white girl who told them, you better be friends with me, or I'm going to tell my dad who come to your house, kill you and kill your parents.
Exactly. But the thing you have to understand is that where does a kindergarten student learn that?
Exactly. It is what you teach them.
Exactly.
But we need to get back. We are talking to Esmeralda Simmons, racial justice lawyer, ALI, grew up in New York. She has dedicated her life to fight for justice. Justice for all, voting rights, redlining, equitable housing, racial killings, police brutality. As we speak today, yesterday, right up here in Maine, On September 3rd, during my birthday weekend, we went and visited an amazing island owned by one of our classmates here.
Owned, I hope you heard that. The island is owned by one of our classmates.
Emphasis. Thank you for that generosity. In that town, in that area, yesterday somebody got a gun. This is an area that has so many Sudanese immigrants. Somebody's unhappy about seeing people in his area that don't belong and started shooting all around. So what Esmeralda has been fighting for, what we all are fighting for, is still happening today.
Yes.
And she mentioned she went to law school. I want our Ugandan audience specifically. We have young women I've educated through our organization who are lawyers now.
Yes.
To go to law school here, you have to do pre-law of 4 years. You go to college for 4 years doing a pre-law, then apply to law school. In Uganda, from high school, you go straight to law school.
Oh, that's smarter.
So it goes faster. When you come here as a Ugandan lawyer, you have to do LLM. That LLM is not an option for United States lawyers because they would have already completed undergraduate.
Wow.
Let's talk about your passion. You studied law, you were good at it, and you came out of law school. You could have been a corporate lawyer, go to Wall Street. We know so many. You could have done anything different, but also there's a correlation here. Recently, we have now a Harvard Black woman whose parents came from Haiti.
Exactly.
Claudine Gay, who is our president now. She's a twin. Her mom was a nurse, just like your mother.
Oh, wow.
Immigrants from Haiti, immigrants from St. Claude, all in New York and having this amendment.
Right, exactly.
Why did you choose to fight racial justice rather than make money? We have several lawyers in our country.
I am very, very happy to hear that young women are becoming attorneys.
Yes.
Because it is so needed. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what type of law you're practicing. There is not a good law and a bad law. We're needed in all areas because we bring our perspective in terms of what is correct and what is the right thing to do and how is the best way to do it for whoever our client is, whether it's a community group or a corporation or an individual. We bring our perspective and our humanity to it, and that makes all the difference in the world. So after undergraduate school, I took a year off, got pregnant, went to law school. I went to Brooklyn Law School again. I was supposed to go to Columbia, but when I realized I was pregnant, I said, I'm going to Brooklyn Law School because my mother was in Brooklyn. And she and my grandmother told me, they brought me in. I said, well, I'm going to put off going to law school another year till after the baby. They said, no.
You're doing it.
Thank you. If you go to law school, we will make sure that the baby is taken care of. My mother said she would stop working part-time and just take care of my baby for the first 6 months I needed it. And so I could go back to school and that for the first year she would be there for me. And that type of sacrifice. Wow. Exactly. It makes me want to cry now.
Yes.
And my grandmother's sitting right behind my mother and saying, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. Yes. And I saw in my grandmother's eyes that she wasn't just doing this for me. She was doing this because this is who my mother could have been.
Now you see why I work with grandmothers? You see why we work with grandmothers? You grandmothers who don't know English, your grandsons have to translate, grandsons and granddaughters, translate this for you.
Yeah.
Our prominent racial justice lawyer here went to law school with 2 children. Mother and grandmother said, you must go, and we will take care of your children. They didn't go to daycare.
Thank you.
They didn't go to the neighborhood where Italian boys were chasing other Black children off the street. They stayed home in a loving environment.
Thank you.
While she went to school.
The sacrifice, exactly.
Yes.
And
takes the whole village.
Exactly. And I said to my mother, you're just starting your off in your career because she had been a housewife working at home with 5 children. And she said, no, this is what I want to do. And she says, you do it. You keep your end of the bargain. I keep my end of the bargain. My end of the bargain was always the same with my family. You have to be an A student. They don't want any B's.
Just
Do it. So I went to law school. I did very well in law school. After law school, I was head of the Black Student Union and all the rest of that. But and I challenged the law school because when I went in, as I said, there were only 5 Black students in my class. In the whole school, there was less than 20. One person was making all the decisions for admission. So I actually challenged the dean of the law school to stop doing admissions the way he was doing it. I wrote an entire petition about how other law schools were operating and why is this school operating like this? And I got faculty members to sign it.
Whoa.
Yeah, their jobs on the line. I said, this has to stop. Yes. So, and it's not the first year, but the second year, it stopped. There was a committee, and there was actually students on the committee, because that's what I did when I was in college. Wonderful. There were students on the committee too. And so after I finished with law school, I went to clerk for a federal judge. My grades were very, very good. I went to clerk for a Black federal judge. I had clerked for him as a student, and he called me to be his clerk. And some of the white students were very upset, because that's the best job you can have coming out of law school.
Yes.
Because you get that job, that means you can go at any big firm you want to.
Yes.
So I get the job. I do it. I love it. I'm very happy there. And I'm there. I do that for a year. It's only a year job. Actually, it was a year and a half. And then I'm telling you this for a reason.
Yes.
Then I looked at all of the agencies that were doing racial justice, that were doing discrimination, civil rights enforcement. What I wanted to do is I wanted to be the best trained civil rights lawyer in New York State. So I looked at all of the agencies, state, city, and federal, and saw what they covered. And I decided I would do, a year here, a year there. I would be putting things in my toolkit, knowledge in my toolkit of how to do various types of civil rights law. So there's housing, employment, obviously racial justice work in terms of people being killed. So I went from that job, and this is when my father got so angry at me. And instead of going to a big law firm, I went to the U.S. Department of Education. And he said, are you out of your mind?
Whoa. Yes.
I said, I have no debt. I was a scholarship student, okay? Yes. I have no debt. My husband was like, go wherever you want to do, whatever you want to do. Not that I need permission, but we are a partnership. So, what I'm making and what he's making is our income. I said, I'll make not what I'll be making at the firm, but I'll make a decent salary.
Exactly.
And
to live on.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I don't need money. I don't need a lot of money. I'm not here for the money. And so I went there because they had the broadest jurisdiction. And then I went to another agency that had what they didn't have. And then I went to another one. And after I finished doing all of that, I should say after, while I was doing all of that, while I also created a very large cadre of young attorneys. I became I became the bar president for the Black Bar Association of Brooklyn. I became the president of that bar association, and I organized all the young lawyers that are willing to do pro bono, free legal work on election cases.
Oh.
So this all comes around in one circle. So all these people that wanted to be elected officials, and we're like in a plantation.
Yes.
We said we will defend you so that you can stay on the ballot.
Yes.
And then if you're honorable, you can be elected, because the people will elect you, all right? If they want you. Or they'll elect somebody else. Maybe they like the white person, they're really doing a good job. And there was some that they wanted and they kept them. But we stopped all of those people from being kicked off the ballot.
Wow.
And
wow.
it changed the history of election law in New York City. And people wrote books about this, about what happened. They call it the Brooklyn Black Empowerment Movement.
Brooklyn
Black Empowerment Movement.
Sure.
So after we got people elected, and that was like, I'm talking about during the summer, I would take every summer off free. I mean, I would take a leave of absence and do all this work in the summer pro bono.
Free of charge.
Yes. Training other lawyers to do this, because we had to have a cadre of lawyers. All the people I went to law school with, people that I knew from Boston, from the Black Law Student Association across the city. I called them all in and said, look, we got 25 people that are running for office. Each one of you, two people, will train you, will give you the papers, will practice with you. And if you need us to go to court with you, we'll go to court with you, but you're going to be representing this person. And I would take cases too. And I did this in association with one other attorney named Paul Wooten, who's now a big judge. He's a big judge now. So we did this. It was a revolution in New York City.
Wow. Did you ever consider running for office?
Oh yeah, I don't want that. That's not me.
You never.
That is no. Jack, do you know?
I know.
Have you ever considered? No, I am the person that does the work behind the scenes. I am not an elected official.
I had to ask for a friend.
Yeah. I am not. I have plenty of friends that are elected officials,
Yes.
and the whole generation of elected officials that we assisted, they basically have retired. It's a whole new crop of people now. Some of whom I know, some of whom I don't know. But I just 2 years ago when I retired, I started training lawyers again, because I can foresee that we're going to have the same scenario again. Unfortunately, this is the unfortunate part. Unfortunately, they are not coming from the right. These are the democratic socialists, but it's still colonialism.
Still,
And they don't
the roots.
Yeah, exactly. They're still gonna. They may put a black face up, but that person is taking all their orders from some person not even in the state.
Yes, who is unseen?
Thank
the forces behind.
Thank you.
The actions.
And I said to them, I cannot have this while I'm no. And most of what they're fighting for, I agree with, but I do not believe in colonialism. We have to find our own way in this very, very broken electoral system and democracy we have in this country. But to have once again somebody somewhere else deciding what's going to happen on our streets, in our community, in our schools, no. So I'm starting it up again, and that's a good exercise for me as a retired person. But before I got to retirement, I did all of that, and then I was chosen. I worked on Jesse Jackson's campaign.
Yes.
I worked on Mario Cuomo's campaign, and I was chosen to be the first Deputy Commissioner of Human Rights for the state of New York. They said they looked at my resume and they said, "Oh my goodness, she's done all of this civil rights stuff. There's not an area of civil rights law that she hasn't worked in. She's perfect for policy work."
How long were you in that?
I was in that role for 3 years.
3 years.
And I left that role to start the Center for Law and Social Justice.
Which is the thing you are working on.
Exactly. No, I've retired from that role. I did that for 34 years. I started a community civil rights, human rights center that focused on racial justice in Brooklyn, attached to the City University of New York. And that center did gugobs of human rights work. We testified at the UN so many times I got sick of doing it. But I know you know about that. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. Yeah, all right. But human rights, human rights violations, this, that, next, and the other. Either way, you have to keep saying it, because if you don't say it, they think it's not happening.
Exactly.
But we did magnificent work in public schools. We did work around redlining, which is stopping people from getting mortgages, etc., not allowing people to buy housing. We did work on police and racial violence. people being killed because of the color of their skin, on police brutality. So we did a whole slew, and I was best known for my voting rights work. We were the only institution that was fighting for voting rights for Black folks in New York State.
Wow.
If we weren't there, nobody else was.
Nobody was doing it.
Asians had their organization, Latinos had their organization, and we became the Black organization. And I dare say that I became the leader of the People of Color Voting Rights Consortium, which is still alive today. And in 2019, I retired after finding a wonderful person to succeed me. I wanted her to, she was with us for 4 years before she became the executive director. She really wanted to do it. She is absolutely committed. She's not me. Yes. She's her. She's her. She's her. She's much more communications and I was much more litigation, but that's her. And you know what? The times call for a different type of leadership. So she's on Sirius FM 3 times a week. Wow. Her name is Lurie Daniel Favors. I'm very, very happy she's there. And I have been doing volunteer work with the center and with other organizations on projects that interest me. I didn't put out a shingle. I'm not, I have a very, very good pension. I'm not making a lot of money. I mean, I make no money from the legal work I do, but it's satisfying and it's serving the community. And I came up here because there is now a need for organization for Black folks to be organized on the local level. And it's not happening. Why? Because our folks need to be told to stand up and defend themselves. We're being attacked daily by the right. I mean, affirmative action wasn't the first thing. Abortion. And before that, they took away minority business enterprises. Yes. I mean, they have been coming after us, one after the other. You know what we do? We sit around like this and we say, oh, this is terrible. They should stop doing this. This is wrong. This is wrong. But we're not doing anything. And it continues. Exactly. Yeah. So now there is a need for us to get back to ground level organizing, like in the civil rights movement. Every person needs to have their organization. So my project and what I came in here to do was to figure out how to get that message out. And I must say I've gotten a lot of resources while I've been up here, and I'm ready to do it. So we're going to have a meeting in January. The new guard, not the old guard. Yes, younger persons and their communication gurus come together in DC for a one-day meeting where we can agree to work on developing this message. And the old guard will act as mentors. But the new guard, mentors, young ones, the young ones, out and that's right. That's young ones. We want to hear your words, your expressions, and your media. It's their world. Yes. You know, they don't need to be talking about flyers and op-eds. All right. Op-eds. The Nicholas's, your classmates, people from all over the country and people from all over the world. These campaigns are not only for people who live in the United States. Right. This is a global world we all need to get in. We'll share that information and what you can do with it. And it's going to be duplicable. In other words, we'll do it here. Exactly. And if it's a success, then everybody take it and run with it. Exactly. Because we need to be doing it. Your town, your village is more organized than Brooklyn. Wow. See, so people are sitting at home and watching the football game. I don't have it. Well, news. No, they don't watch the news. Yeah. They watch the football game and they watch, Real Housewives of Atlanta and talk about how terrible these right-wing people are. Kardashians. Yes, the Kardashians. And that's it. That's where it stops. They don't do anything. Yes, so your brain needs to be filled with information. That's right. There is technology. I spoke to an AI person yesterday. The technology as a tool. People choose to watch Housewives of Atlanta. Others choose to watch what's going on in their communities. Exactly. Put down part of those gadgets and read, understand your community, and participate in changing your community. And the goal is very simple. This is the model. each of us gets the message and hears that we have to stand up, stand up, and get involved, get organized. You go to create an organization or you join anything, you join a church, you join the NAACP, you join the PTA, you join the barbershop group that's talking politics, and you work with the people on your block or your community, or you run for office, you join a political club. There are 1,000 different clubs, Masonics, and then they got people, fraternities and sororities. We're in 1,000 different organizations. We want every organization, every single one, to have a political campaign. They choose it. We don't tell them what to do. They choose it based upon what's happening in their community. They choose their campaign. I don't care if it's a pothole in the street. They choose what they're going to work on. They get organized. They get tooled up to work on campaigns. And I'm sure a call will come out for all of us to work on something together at some point. But that's not me. That's going to be the new guard that's going to make that call, not me.
So after 34 years of successful career, after doing all this, you still now want to make, you came to Advanced Leadership Initiative, so you can build tools, get this going, and get the young guard.
Exactly.
Yes. You talked about, as we come to the end, talk about your mother, your grandmother, and what they did for you to do the law school. Talk about your children and grandchildren.
And my father, and my children and my 7 grandchildren, and my 2 great-grandchildren.
So grandmothers, yes.
I am now the grandmother. Yes. Exactly. My children, my wonderful children, both are very accomplished and so interesting. The part of me that my mother and my father thought would be the nurse, well, they're not nurses, but one of them works with children who have emotional or physical handicaps, and works on basically being their counselor in the school system. So their day-to-day activity to make sure that they're getting what they're supposed to be getting, and he is so talented. He has a way with young people that even when he's telling them that they need to change their behavior, they're so happy to please him that they're willing to do it.
Wow.
So instead of pushing against them,
they are willing.
He pulls it out of them. He shows that he cares about them, and then they want to please him because he shows that he cares. That's my oldest son, Marcus Akinshaye, and my youngest son, Ewansia Elias. He works in Georgia as the deputy director of the statewide Georgia Foster Care Advocacy Agency. So these are the people who work with youth who are basically without family, that are in the foster care system, to be the advocates for those young people. Some lawyers, some lay people, they train the lay people to make sure that those young people are not cast aside, just like the orphans.
Yes.
That's just like the AIDS orphans. Well, we have a whole bunch of AIDS orphans in the US. So
I worked as a CASA, court appointed.
This is Georgia CASA.
Yep.
This is Georgia CASA.
That was my first volunteer activity in the United States.
Well, that's exactly what he does. And he is in the office, so he's doing the budget and the computers and everything else, but he's also the person that trains the advocates.
One? Oh my goodness.
And then I have a nephew that I raised with my mother, my youngest sister's son, and he is in California, and he has done magnificent work in IT on the corporate side, and now he's starting up his own business with another folks. I'm not delighted with the business, but it's his business, and they have created a vodka that has a plum flavor that people love. I don't drink, so I can't tell you how good it is, but anyone I gift with this, the next time I see them, they don't see me. You know what they see? Do you have any more of that plum vodka? I'm sorry, I should know the name of it. It just slipped out of my mind what it's called. But he's running that business, and it's a success. It's in the West Coast now.
Yeah.
Now they introduced it to China and the Philippines and it's in Vegas. So he's doing that. And after working for years and years as for IBM and for corporate folks, in terms of corporate IT innovation, now he's working for himself, and it makes all the difference in the world. I'm very happy for him. I'm sorry, I will get some of that vodka. if you like vodka, right?
No, I'm not a vodka person, but
Okay.
I know people in our cohort who
Oh, really?
who will not see you anymore and
I will
ask
only
you
see them because of vodka, right? Right. So
That's very good and a great conversation we've had here. Many young people who will listen to this are going to go, I want to be like Esmeralda. I wish I could do this. The question I've asked every guest I've had on this channel, what advice would you give yourself when you were 18 years of age?
follow my heart.
Or
Follow my whatever the thing that you think is most important, that you have a talent for. Use a talent to do what you think is important, whether it's for you, your family, your village, your community, your nation, or the world.
yes.
But I was told over and over again, when I was talking about being a teacher, that my talent, you might be a good teacher, and I do love teaching. You might like teaching, but your talent is being an advocate.
Exactly, yes.
And they were absolutely right. I just, when I surrendered to that, everything fell into place. Now, life is much more difficult now for young people. I'm going to say why I had scholarships through college all the way to like here. I'm on scholarship here. I cannot afford this. This was I am a scholarship student.
You and me.
And I want you to know that is there are very few of us, okay, here. But that I came into college when the civil rights movement was bearing fruit. I gained fruit from that. I gained everything I had from my own scholarship, but the opportunities were there. There were scholarships there. Now, most of that has dried up. There's a little bit of money because of guilt after George Floyd was killed, and Black Lives Matter movement, but it's not even comparative to what there was in 1970.
Exactly.
And that's drying up already.
Yes.
That's drying up.
Even me, going to Columbia University, I had a scholarship. Indiana University scholarship, Harvard, I had a scholarship. But I want to say something about this. Earlier, I had a conversation with Mike Emery, who recruits people for our program. And during the conversation, we talked about admissions and people who are coming in. We have people whose mindset, even when they can afford this program, are asking for a scholarship when they can afford it. Mentality. Somebody who just reads about it and say, Harvard has this big endowment, they should pay for me. He gave me several examples where people who had the means to do the program and the public means that you can read about are still pushing. I will not do it when I cannot get it paid for. The person works right here in the United States, goes to Las Vegas, buys a whole house for $3 million, but he wants 100,000 scholarship.
No.
So to you businessmen and people who have made money, we need to maintain our dignity. If you can afford for it, pay for it. Because the more you argue about wanting to get it for free when you can afford it, people who come from governments where they are made so much.
I'm living on a pension, all right? And Social Security.
Vice presidents, business owners. It's a program you can do, pay for it, and then pave the way. Even better, pay for another person to come. Then we can have representation, then we can continue to grow this world of ours, global world we all live in. Any parting words or something I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with the audience?
As a grandmother and a great-grandmother, my responsibility is now to do for the next generation and generation after,
Mhm.
and to look over them and to see that they have opportunities. I've made sure that my two grandchildren that went to college have had as least a bumpy a road as possible. Try to smooth the road out for them. Nobody's life is going to be completely smooth, but to smooth it out for them, don't have to worry about this and the next. If it's about resources,
Yes.
and can focus on studying. And the two who have not gone to college, one of them I asked her, does she need a new pair of boots? Because she's doing her thing, but she's not making a lot of money. And I know when her boots wear out, she's gonna wear them until there's more than 3 holes in them.
Yes.
So I'm the grandmother that says, okay, send me the boots you want so I can send you the boots.
Exactly.
Because she's not gonna ask my son, who was her father,
Yeah.
but she's too proud.
Yes. Grandma.
But grandma is okay.
Grandma is proud, and
you all have our roles, and I want you as young people to please understand that we are absolutely relying on you to carry it through.
yes.
Those of us that, my age, I'm pushing now to continue to work, but I'm really relying on you to absolutely
Yep.
carry the heavy load.
There we go.
You go with our blessings.
We have promised you always will bring you ordinary people doing or who have done extraordinary work. And today you heard from one yourself. Go subscribe, share, learn, relearn, and unlearn. But the message you got this, you young people, go do it and let us know how we can help you do it. We all know and believe the best is yet to come. Thank you for watching.